I do want you, if you could, to sort of take us behind the curtain a little bit. You and your team have landed at the winter meetings. Things are just starting to heat up a little bit. Are you in a suite? You in a war room? What's happening in that room? How many people are going to be in there over the course of the next 3 days?
I mean, every organization has an army that descends upon the winter meetings, wherever they happen to be. So whether it's player development, performance science, analytics, your managers here, your pro scouts. So it's a ton of people. So the war room's going to be fluctuating probably between 11 to 25 people, depending on when you're coming and going. There's various meetings, in different locations of various properties here in the area. So guys are coming and going, but the ultimate goal is to improve the club and find a way to fill some holes and see where it takes us.
Brian, obviously the work doesn't start here in Orlando. You're already talking to teams, talking to free agents. What's number one on your wish list, and how confident are you that you're going to be able to improve the team over the next few days?
I don't have a number one. It's more like you have enough conversations with what's available in the marketplace via trade or free agency, or in the trade space, whether you can pry some pretty intriguing stuff away from somebody, so it's not just what's available, what might not be available, but you forced to make available to some degree if you can, and you gravitate to what becomes more realistic. Most things aren't realistic. You have the conversations, 99% of them lead to nowhere, but the ones that you start getting, you don't get the no's or the denials or the shutdowns immediately. There might be some legs here and tweaks that have to be hit. That's where we're trying to play on and see where these conversations take us.
Brian, one player who fit in seamlessly last year was Cody Bellinger. He's obviously a free agent now. You're already on the record as saying, as you did speak with his agent, Scott Boras, how would you describe the status of those discussions?
He's still in play. I talked to Scott Boras yesterday. Scott was in Mexico for a wedding. I think Zach Gallen, congrats, Zach, to him and his wife getting married. But he was in Mexico, so he's traveling here today. If not, he probably got in at some point today. But we're going to continue to have dialogue. He's got a number of players in the marketplace. He's got a very deep roster. Cody Bellinger also is one of them. So, again, my job is to stay fluid, make sure I have all the intel that's coming in as much as I can, share it with ownership, and at some point, something might materialize.
You talk about maneuverability. That's so important for every team throughout the offseason. How would you describe the maneuverability you have to make some of these moves?
That's what these talks are about. So, like, the sands can change things. We have a lot of flexibility in the fact that we have players that I feel are all part of the solution, most likely, rather than, in theory, part of a problem. So we have, currently we have a good team on paper. If you're on the position player side, whether you got Stanton, you got Rice, you got Jazz, you got Volpe, who's due back in May, you got McMahon, you got the kids, whether it's Dominguez or Spencer Jones pushing his way through, or Grisham and Judge. On the position player side, you're somewhat set in theory, but the conversations could lead to, I call, challenge trades, where all of a sudden something, whets your appetite, or you whet somebody else's appetite with one of these kind of interesting conversations, and next that area becomes vacant, and next thing you know, that's where you swoop in and pull something else down because you rob Peter to pay Paul to improve some other aspect of the club. Clearly, our front of the rotation, we have some vulnerabilities with the injuries to Cole and Rodon, so we're looking around the starting rotation situation and how do we map that out further. We did Yarborough already, who can give us some coverage early on, but what more can we do, if anything? Bullpen, we've lost some guys to free agency currently. We have a chance to pull some of those guys back in. Some of those guys have already signed elsewhere. How do we improve that area? So that's the stuff we're playing with.
You mentioned the starting pitching. Let's talk about that, because is it a balancing act knowing you want to get better with starting pitching potentially, but you also know on the horizon you have Garrett Cole coming back, you're going to have Clark Schmidt at some point. So those pieces are already kind of there. They're just not there yet.
Yeah, but you could always daydream too if you did import something, and these are the ways we think is, hey, worst case scenario, if everything stays healthy and those guys come back the way they're supposed to on the time frame they're supposed to, and one of those guys goes to the pen, and that's not bad either, because then that becomes a super arm out of the pen that can give you a lot of different looks and make you deeper regardless. So I'm not afraid of that, but we are playing around with a lot of different ideas and seeing if it takes us anywhere.
One guy that maybe isn't talked about enough is a guy that posted every 5 days, and Will Warren, making 33 starts last season. Brian, how surprised were you with the way he factored in, and what impressed you about the growth you saw from Warren in particular?
We've always had high hopes for Warren, and obviously he delivered big time for us last year. So he's always had the talent, and I think the combination of what he pulled from his development and learning on the run that way, and then you put him in, the class with Cole and Rodon and all these other guys, Max Fried, and he's a sponge learning everything that they get to share. Next, warp speed, he's now really delivering and every 5 days with amazing starts. I give a lot of credit to our pitching crew, whether it's Sam Breen or Matt Blake and everybody around them, along with his teammates. He really was an impactful player for us, and we needed it. Obviously we needed everything he brought to the table, and his name gets asked about a lot, and it was asked about a lot in years gone by, and I'm glad we resisted.
You mentioned the possibility of importing a pitcher. Imai from the Seibu Lions in Japan is one pitcher who was out there. The Yankees have had 7 Japanese players in their history, but haven't had one since Tanaka. How much does Imai intrigue you?
Very talented player coming over from Japan, and we've certainly taken our big swings for trying to add some more talented players, whether they're local or overseas as far as Japan. So Scott Boras represents him, so he's got a long list of talented players on his roster. So, I'm talking to a lot of different agents, but obviously he's one of them as well.
So you said you talked to Scott about Cody. Did
I
come up?
I talked to Scott about everything
Multiple
yesterday.
players?
So.
All right, so Bellinger's still in play. Let's talk a little more about the outfield, because you mentioned Judge will be back. Grisham accepted the qualifying offer. You've got Dominguez. You've got Spencer Jones. Once Grisham accepted that QO, did you have deeper conversations about how you want to approach the outfield?
Well, it gave us some reassurance, because ultimately we entered the winter down 2 highly productive, impactful players that led us to having the, tied with the best record in the American League in the toughest division, and some of those reasons were Cody Bellinger and Trent Grisham. So when Trent accepted the qualifying offer, it gave us, now we've got our center field situation locked down for next year. We believe the changes he made with his swing were real, and so we were very happy with that. So now it's a little bit less pressure, now instead of being down 2, we're down 1, and it gives us a little bit more flexibility. Go with the kids, see what the price tags are in free agency, see whatever challenge trades come your way, and make a decision when they come your way. And so the Grisham qualifying offer acceptance was a good thing for us.
Cash, if we move it to the infield, first base in particular, we saw Ben Rice there quite a bit last season. How do you see that shaking out? Would you feel comfortable with Rice there? Do you feel like you need outside help at that position in particular?
No, Rice at first is fine. He can catch, he can play first, and first base was a secondary position for him. One he was learning on the run, and he got better and better as the year went on. So we're really proud of what Rice is and what he brings to the table. And as far as I'm concerned, he's manning first base for us. With Wells catching, and but the one thing, as I touched base on all that stuff, is that we are obviously 2 left-handed, so we need to find a way to balance out. And I thought we had a good trade deadline last year, because we were able to bring in a few right-handed bats. We already had Goldschmidt, you had Stanton, we had Rosario come in on the trade deadline with Slater. Slater got hurt, but at the end of the day, it gave Booney some more choices, balanced us out. The deadline we also just had, that we came off of, I think was fruitful in the fact that it gave us some more controllable inventory. A lot of the players we brought in are collapsing right into our winter. They weren't here for 3 months and gone. They protected us in many ways. So, for instance, as we try to rebuild the bullpen, we have Duvall and Bednar now, as we move into the 2026 season, but we've lost Devin and Weaver. So thankfully, a lot of the things we did the deadline, we still have to show, and it gives us some protection, but we need to add to it.
You also acquired Bird last year. You have Cruz, you have Hill. How do you build the rest of that bullpen? You have some slots in there.
Yeah, again, we're talking turkey on teams with trades, and we're engaged with the free agent market, and seeing what we can match up with. What makes enough sense where we can try to close something out.
You've given us a pretty strong lay of the land, talked a lot about the roster. I know you're 4 months away from opening day. What excites you the most about this team? What concerns you the most about this team?
The balance on the right-handed balance is a concern right now. The lack of right-handed balance right now, that's something that we got to figure that out over time. And it doesn't mean it's going to happen immediately, but I need to balance this out. We got really good players in most positions, but they also happen to be predominantly left-handed. It's amazing, we go way back, and lefties were so thin back in the day, and now righties are almost extinct, it seems like, in this game, and it's almost all left-handed. So I got to find a way to import some right-handed choices so my manager can play matchup and balance this out properly.
You always come, every day you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening. You've come to winter meetings, maybe not expecting any blockbusters. Have you ever remembered a winter meeting where you've had it where you might be having a conversation with a GM and an assistant GM from another team, and all of a sudden, boom, there's a trade possibility out of the blue, and you're jumping on it?
Yeah, normally when the dominoes start to fall, it chases further conversations out of nowhere that hadn't really happened, or things you may have crossed off your board that I threw that out there, they didn't have an interest in it, and then maybe they strike out on a few things that were higher on their level of interest, and now they come back and say, hey, is that still in play? So, but yeah, you can get those lightning strike texts. That's the way people talk nowadays. You get a text instead of these in-person meetings per se. So it's weird. We got to fly all over the country to go to a room, and then you just text back and forth. That's the way the world works with technology today. But so be it. We're all getting after it and seeing where it takes us.
So when you get those lightning texts, you then read it and then text us, right?
That's right.
That's how that works.
Just to show you what I do. I don't do it. I don't text yes, but then we have a Teams channel, and I'll cut and copy that and then put it on my Teams channel with the appropriate team that's associated with it, and blast it out to my crew so everybody in real time, for the most part, has it, and then he can weigh in, thumbs up, thumbs down, a puking gif, whatever it is, or hey man, that's too good to be true, whatever it's going to be. But it allows the conversation to flow rather quickly.
Well, if you'd like to add us to Teams, we're good with that too. In all seriousness, when it comes to Anthony Volpe, you mentioned him earlier. How do you evaluate him at this point in time?
I think he's a good player that last year, I think, unbeknownst to all of us, including himself, because I always use the terminology like it's like when you bring an animal to the vet, you're only as good as if you can try to tell him what's wrong. And Anthony, he did have a shoulder episode, and through the testing last year early on, it didn't lead to anything. And a lot of times the testing that you do doesn't show everything that's going on. And so during the course of the summer, when he started struggling again, I know they were asking him questions about, is it your shoulder? And he'd say, my shoulder's never felt better. Actually, it's not my shoulder. So we kind of knocked that off as an issue. But then the diving, he's such a aggressive player. So he dove on it again. Next thing you know, once he wound up having a surgery, they opened him up, and Dr. Ahmad said it was far worse than the MRIs would have led them to believe. And he's a tough kid, and the physical testing wouldn't have led him to believe that. So he had a pretty significant surgery, non-throwing shoulder. But I got to believe, long story short, that speaks more to everything that happened to his performance this past year than anything else, because he is a good player. We were in the World Series with him playing shortstop the previous year. And so I look forward to getting him back, because I know, as does he, I think he's looking forward to getting back on track and performing the way he's capable of.
Speaking of getting guys back, we've talked about this. At some point in 2026, you'll have Cole, you have Rodon, down the line, Schmidt as well. If the season started today, the rotation that you're looking at in Fried, Schlittler, Warren, Heel, Yarbrough, what would your comfort level be in starting the season with those five?
I'd be very comfortable, without a doubt. But we all know how starting pitching works. It doesn't stay healthy all the time. They don't, just like anybody else, you can't count on every performing to the levels that you're expected to. So, So my job is to find as much as I can to reinforce it and improve upon it.
One guy that came up and certainly helped anchor that rotation in the second half was Cam Schlittler, kind of out of nowhere.
Thank God.
Is there anyone else that we should be keeping an eye on this year heading into the season that you think could emerge as a guy that really winds up helping?
It wasn't just, as you said, Cam was a great name, and Will Warren, obviously what he wound up doing was fantastic for us, as you said earlier. So, we have some good young pitching coming that have found their way from AA into AAA in some cases. The kid Cruz we got from Boston last year in the trade where we traded Narvaez, and he's one of them. He's knocking on the door. We got some big guys that got big arms that can do some things, but I also hate to point them out too easily because I want to put pressure on it. We did not see what Cam Schlittler was going to do for us this past year. A lot of guys had their hand in saving our season in terms of making sure we had a playoff run, and Cam certainly was one of them. And what he wound up doing all the way into the playoffs was special. So certainly hope more of that's coming. We got guys that on the radar that have a lot of talent, but trying to see if it can translate at the major league level, that's a whole nother ball game. But time will tell.
One final question before we let you go. When you became GM, social media did not exist. What a blessing. Now it does, and it's everywhere. And the winter meetings are about rumors and free agents, and sometimes stories come across like Yankees are all in on this player, this player, this player. Do you sometimes hear those and just go, what?
Yeah.
Like, where's this coming from?
Yeah, there's a lot of noise, and most of it's probably false. It's chased me out of doing as much media as I used to do in the past, and it certainly chased me out of following things on social media, which I used to because it gets me irritated. It's unhealthy.
Happens to a lot of people.
There's a lot of hate out there too, by the way. I'm aware of that too. So, I stay out of it because it's that's an uncontrollable space. But listen, it drives a lot of interest in, again, whether it's our sport, whether it's politics, whatever. People want to engage each other on the subject of the day. So it's a good thing that the Yankees are a subject.
Yes.
So, and it's our job to make sure that subject is something they can be proud of. So hopefully we can run into some good things to add to what we already have, because what I don't want people to forget is we already have something that's good. We're just trying to improve upon it.